All right. Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. So this is part 2 of our theory lesson, and so more interesting things ahead. We're going to work more on building the chords that we did in the previous section. Let me try. I'll show you what I did there in a second. Let me get back to my piano setting here. Okay, so we're going to talk about constructing chords. We learned before, I'm just going to do a quick review. We learned the major scale. Okay. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay. And we learned also that instead of giving them letters, we could give them numbers. It's like a nickname. Okay, we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. A lot of guys, if you play in a band, they might not say, okay, play a C chord, now play an F and play a G. More than likely, they might say, play a 1 chord, here's a 4, here's a 5, here's a 2 minor, okay, 6 minor. So they're going to do that kind of thing when you play in a professional situation, and so it's good to understand that. So it basically means the same thing, okay? So maybe it just sounds better, you know, like, hey dude, give me a 2 minor or something. I don't know, but you will see that a lot. Okay, so what I was doing on that intro, let me just show you that really quick. So we learned how to play a C chord, okay? When we learned that by taking this scale, if we take this cookie cutter shape, C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, C. Okay, so we have 3 major chords, which are the C, the F, and the G, and we have 3 minor chords, which was the D minor, the E minor, the A minor, and of course we have that one oddball diminished chord. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in today's lesson. So the fun thing about this, if I play a C down here, see, we can harmonize the scale down here. It's the same thing. We're just playing an octave lower. So we can do what's called an arpeggio, so or a broken chord. Okay. So if we just play them all together, that's a block chord. Okay. We can play a root down here, but if I play it broken or arpeggiate it, I can go like this. Okay, so that makes a really nice effect. You'll see guitar players when they finger pick, they're doing this. So what I did on that opening up, I just played an arpeggio with my left hand on a C, and then I played another one here. Now I go over. Okay, let me do that again. And then I just went to the next, when we're harmonizing the scale, I went to the D minor. And if you have a pedal, it sounds nice if you have to release the pedal in between each, when you change, but when you're like, say for example, when you're on the D, well, let me just go from the beginning. So C, I'm going to push my pedal down, the sustain pedal. Now I'm going to lift before I start this D. Lift again, then press again on the E. Then lift, press again on the F. We're going to go to our G. A minor. B diminished. Back to C. Okay, and I'm trying to get rid of the squeaky chair. I just put some silicone spray on it, and obviously it didn't fix it, so pardon my squeaky chair, folks. Okay, so anyways, that's a fun way to practice, and that will sound really impressive, and I'll show you a different way of playing that sounds even more impressive, but for the sake of simplicity, you can practice it that way, and all your friends will be really impressed, and they won't realize that it's really actually not that hard to do. Okay, so let's get on with the lesson, okay? so to construct chords, we started off with our C chord, and we learned that a chord, you know, aside from the key, the big picture is the key of the song, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The 1, 4, and 5 are the three main chords in every song, and then you will have the relative minors. But within that, if you drill down deeper, the major scale also lets you build chords themselves within the scale. Or each, say if you're playing a C chord, for example, you're going to build the notes off of a C major scale. If I was playing say a G chord, maybe I didn't know how to make a particular G chord, I would build that off of a G major scale. And I'll go into that in a second, but we're going to stick with C for now. So we learned that if we take the three, a C chord is made of a root, a third, and a fifth. That's the recipe. You can think of this as a recipe, okay? That's your recipe to build a C chord, and the C is going to be on the root for now, okay? Or the first note will be the C or the lowest note, okay? We learned that if we flat the third, 1, 2, 3, that gives us a minor chord, okay? So what about, let's do some other notes. What if I wanted to play, well, let's do the diminished, okay? You know, this popped up and I didn't talk about it. So what about a C diminished? So to diminish something is to make it smaller. Like, you know, I wish I could diminish myself and lose some weight. Okay, so that was a bad analogy. So a diminished chord is to make smaller, okay? So if I take this C chord, if I flat the third, okay, that's the minor. But what if I shrink it down even more? This is the 5. What if I flat that 5? That's going to be a diminished. Hear that? It's actually called a half diminished, okay? And that's kind of, and it sounds kind of odd in that context, but a diminished chord can actually be pretty. See, what was I thinking of? So I'm doing broken chords. To spend one night with you at our rendezvous. See that? So that kind of sounds a little bit different. Or how about make the world go away and get it off my shoulder. Say the things you used to say. Okay, so you can kind of see how that diminished chord works. And sometimes it can sound like when the villain is coming during like a melodrama or something. And the thing to note about the diminished chord is that notice you have 2 notes between each note, okay? If I go do 2 more notes, that'll give me that diminished 7th, okay? So when you play like this, it's a half diminished. If you want to get really technical, if you play this, it's a full diminished or a diminished 7th, which is a double flatted 7th, and we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so you've got your 1, your 3, okay, your 5, we can flat it, okay. What about if we take this 5, if we augment it, okay? So when you augment it, you add something to it, okay? So this would be an augmented. Okay. Now I don't expect you to remember all these chords. It takes like a long time to be able to get used to them, but at least you will have like a knowledge of it. And you've heard this before, like da, 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 Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try that again. Da, 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 da. So that's a progression right there with that augmented in there. And also sometimes you could have an augmented, say if I was to go to the G. So here's your 1, 4, and 5. Okay, so maybe I had a song. Let's see, how could I do this? Maybe it goes to the 5 chord. Okay, 4, let's go to 6 minor. See how that kind of leads you back? Okay, so that's the augmented. So you've heard that like in lots of songs. So be aware of that. It's kind of fun to listen to songs and you'll go, oh, that's an augmented chord right there, or that's a diminished, or that's a minor. Okay, so let's continue on. The next note we can add is a fifth, or well, above the fifth is the sixth. Hear that? So that's telling us we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're adding a sixth note to that C chord, okay? So that's a C6. You can play it like this. It has a cool sound. If you ever plan to move west. Okay, so that's the sixth chord. Kind of a cool sounding. Okay, and then the next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there's 2 sevenths that you have to remember, okay? We have a major seventh, which is a real pretty chord. Okay, so there's lots of songs that have that the major seventh in there, of which I can't seem to think of any right now. So that's your major seventh. Now the other one that we're coming to is the one that's used the most, and that's the flatted seventh. Okay, so the major seventh is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's your major seventh because it's actually a scale note, and it's actually called the leading tone. Because notice that there's no sharps or flats between this seventh and going back to the C. It's called the leading tone because it leads you right back into the scale. Okay, now the flatted seventh you've heard more. This is the flatted seventh right there, okay? She was just 17. Okay, so that's the flatted seventh. Okay. And let's see, so that's pretty much it, I think. Let's see, so we have C, you have C minor. If you flat the fifth, you have half diminished, okay? Back to your C. If you augment the fifth, raise it. That's the augmented, C augmented, okay? The C6, we're gonna add the 6 to it, okay? The major seventh. And of course the flatted seventh. Okay. Okay, so you can see that that's how you can construct a lot of your chords. Now you could also do, how about a minor seventh? Okay, this was the C flat seventh. Okay, that's your C7. What about a minor seventh? If I flat this third, there's a C minor 7. See, so this is where it's so exciting because the possibilities are endless. How about a minor major 7th? Okay, that sounds like a handful, right? Well, watch this. C major 7th. If I flat the third. players, that's a minor major 7. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You know, all these chords are handy because then you can make up almost anything you want to do. Playing the notes in the scale. Now, one thing that I can tell you is that, remember, we have 3 major chords and we have three minors. The minors are also known as relative minors. So let me show you a different way of looking at this. So here's C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, C. Okay. C's relative minor is the A minor, which is down here, okay? So think of the relative minor as it's 3 notes down, 1, 2, 3, okay? And you make it a minor, okay? So C's relative minor is A minor. If you go to F, its relative minor, 1, 2, 3, is D minor, okay? And then the G chord, its relative minor, 1, 2, 3, is E minor. So you can kind of think of them that way too, is that you have 3 main chords, and then each of those 3 main chords has a relative minor, okay? That's more of how a professional musician kind of looks at it. And the other thing that can really get to be confusing sometimes is that those relative minors we've been speaking of so far sometimes can actually be a relative major, okay? So you could have a C and it could actually have an A major, okay? And it could even have a D major, okay? So remember that nothing is written in stone, but just something to be aware of. And that's confused me from times in the past, you know, like when you're just sitting in with a band and you're improvising. You know, sometimes, you know, you're thinking, okay, 1, 4, and 5, and you know you're going to have some relative minors in there, but you know, sometimes they can be a relative major. And that happened to me on that song Blue. I forget who the artist was that did Blue. I don't know if I can do it and see. Yeah, here we go. So in the key of C, we have a relative minor, we have an E minor, but what this song ends up doing is it goes blue, blue. See that I went to the, and then instead of going to an A minor, it went to an A major. So that song used all 3 minors, ended up going to a major. And I can tell you, I don't know how many times I screwed that thing up on stage because I'm thinking, oh, where's the relative minors? And you got C, E major, A major, D major, and then to the G, okay? So sometimes that can get confusing. You don't have to worry about that at this point in time, okay? So just remember, nothing is ever written in stone. But for now, just stick with what I've showed you about the 3 main chords and your relative minors, okay? And then basically that's about it for this lesson. I'm just going to show you like some songs you can do. Now an easier way to do this, a simple rhythm pattern for now, is just going to be the oom-pa. So this is a really common 1950s progression. Used to play around with hearts, hastened at my call. This is an old Ricky Nelson song. When the nights have come and the land, wish I knew the lyrics to this time. So there's so many songs you can do with this, with these chords and these chord progressions in the key of C. Feel it in my fingers, I feel it in my bones. I was telling one of my young guitar students that, you know, this comes up later in guitar because the C, F, and G is hard to play on guitar, and I told one of my guitar students that, hey, once you know this chord progression, you will know hundreds of 50s songs from the 1950s. Think of all the stuff you can do. And she looks at me and she goes, why would I want to do that? So, okay, I get it. If you're a young person, then don't worry about that. But I can tell you that this chord progression is in modern music. I had one student that said, hey Max, why are we learning all these songs with these chords, these old chords? I said, well, why don't you pick out a song and we'll do that next week. Well, he came back and the song that he picked out did this. I forget what the name of the song was. So anyways, I looked at that and I thought, well, that's exactly the same chord progression. They're simply just starting on the F. So here's C. You have your A minor. Okay, so, you know, a lot of this stuff is just remixed and made to sound more modern, okay? So have fun with that, you know, get like an easy piano book and find stuff in the key of C and just practice along and see how many songs you can play using these chords. And then, you know, if you find some of the different chords, see if you can build, you know, before you go looking the chord up, see if you can construct the chords yourself. This is called chord spelling, okay? And then that way you can recreate your chords, and all you need to do, whatever chord you're playing with your right hand, just put the root note with your left hand. Okay? And you can try to see the pattern that develops here. Here you'll notice I'm looking to my left and then my right, and then look to your left and get this, you go down 2, and look to the left again, back at your right hand, then up 1. So you want to master just this basic oom-paw rhythm. I'll show you other rhythms as we get going. And again, this left hand with the piano, this is pretty much what you need to be doing for band style, because if you're down here doing a bunch of stuff, if you're playing with a band and you have a bass player, the bass player is not going to be very happy if you're down here messing around with a bunch of notes. So you want to keep this pretty simple. Now, if I'm playing by myself, you know, I can have the liberty to do some stuff. I could do more, you know, if I'm playing by myself. But for the most part, you want to keep that really simple, okay? So anyways, folks, I'm going to wrap this up because it ended up being another long lesson. There's just so much to learn, so much to cover in so little time. But I hope that wasn't too fragmented of a lesson. I will always kind of bring this up during the lessons and reiterate what we've covered. So don't worry, you will get all this through osmosis, okay? So anyways, I really appreciate your time and I hope you're having fun and learning lots of cool stuff. So anyways, have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time around. Bye-bye.